Hi, Stuart Bruce here, and I am the Spare Time Property Investor. In these podcasts, I'm going to share tips, tricks, and lessons that I've learned and will hopefully help you, especially if you're still working the 9 to 5. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spare Time Property Investor. First off, I'd just like to thank everybody who's listened so far, everybody who's subscribed, and also I've received some really nice private messages which have been fantastic. So in this episode, I had the opportunity to interview Alexandra from Powell Property. She's a freelance architect and they have a construction company between her and her husband who has a background in construction. So they are a really great team. In the interview, Alexandra discusses how they're building a portfolio, but they also help other people develop projects, as well as having a young child, fundraising, networking, and all the other things that go into property investment. So as you can appreciate, they're really busy. But in the interview, Alexandra shares how she manages to keep on top of everything. In the interview, she says this.
And creating a house that someone is proud to call home. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So.
And this.
It's good to think outside the box, and you really see that with property investors because there's such a diverse bunch.
So now let's not waste any more time. Let's get to the interview with Alexandra from Powell Design and Construction Limited. So thank you so much for joining me, Alexandra. And to start off with, let's talk a little bit about your business. So I understand you run a construction company with your husband, Richard, and you're also a freelance architect, and you have a toddler. So everything sounds very busy and hectic. So let me know what your kind of day-to-day life looks like.
Absolutely. First off, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and share a bit of our story with you. And so, yeah, as you said, I'm an architect. I've worked in practice for the past 15 years. So I started working for an architect well before I even went to university. I took a gap year and I worked in practice just to figure out that that's really what I wanted to do before committing to a 7-year course. So during my studies, I worked and travelled, and then I met my husband about 5 years ago, and on our first date, we talked about property investment. People sitting either side of us at the restaurant must have thought we were a bit weird, but we talked about how one day we wanted to build our own house and do developments and refurbs. So that's how the whole dream started, really, 5 years ago, almost to the day.
That's cool.
So we now, for the past 6 months, I've been self-employed. We run the construction company, and we're slowly building our buy-to-let portfolio.
That's brilliant. So how do you manage to build that portfolio around your busy lives?
So the first step that we took was a bit radical, and I don't recommend it to everyone, but we sold our house. So we'd invested a lot of time into a big refurb of our house in Essex. So we were planning on staying there for 5 years. There was so much passion and love that had gone into that house. But we put it on the market, and we sold it for a lot more than what we bought it. And we relocated to our investment area, which is Stoke-on-Trent. I quit my job. We took the baby out of nursery, and so we moved to Stoke, and that's how it all started. That was our initial investment pot, really.
As you say, I mean, that's quite radical. It must have been a really, you must have been very, very committed and, determined to make it work if you were going to those lengths to, sell your house, move area and everything like that.
Absolutely. But to us, it didn't feel like a big radical thing. It didn't even feel brave or risky. Our purpose was so clear, and what we wanted to do was so obvious to us that was just the way forward. And I don't regret it so far. It's been a real challenge, and we can talk about the struggles as well. But so far it's gone really well. 6 months in, we've got our first 2 properties. One's on the market, and we're hoping to have a lot more by the end of the year.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people will find that really inspirational. It's a very brave move. It's great. So before we move on, so in your email and just there, you were saying about leaving your full-time job. So was that as a part of a longer-term plan, or was it to fit around family, or to make sure you could have these investment properties? Yeah. So how did that decision kind of come?
So the way Richard and I work, we like to do things 100%. We don't do things by halves. And I know a lot of people try to build a portfolio alongside a full-time job, and hats off to them because it's really difficult. But for us, we made the decision to sort of fast track our journey a little bit. So that meant that Richard's income from the construction company, because he was self-employed as well, had to cover our overheads. So it was a mixture between reducing our overheads and increasing our income. And so, yeah, that's what we did. We knew that we'd have to raise private finance, and we do have about 4 angels that we're working with at the moment. We've got 2 or 3 other investors in the pipeline, and it's just a matter of getting the deals. So yeah, I'm quite passionate about fundraising and bringing a vision to reality. So it wasn't brave or sort of radical at the time. It didn't feel like it.
Yeah. But obviously you've put a lot of thought into it, and yeah. So you're saying about being passionate about the finance raising and everything like that. So these angels, how did you find them? How did you kind of put yourselves out there as networking events or what,
So initially it started with the most simple thing, which is talking to people. So we just told people what we were doing. Richard was very apprehensive about telling people what our plan was at the beginning. I think he was afraid of negativity or criticism, and I'm happy to say that we've had none of that. Everybody in our network, family, friends, ex-colleagues have been so supportive, and they've sort of cheered us along on the journey. So our first 2 angels, one was a really close friend of mine, and one was a family member. And then after that, it just happened that we were at a property course, at a networking event, and people approached us and said, I have this money sitting in the bank. I don't have time to invest myself. Would you and Richard be able to invest it for us? And that's how it happened, really organically, not forced. I think the best tip when trying to raise money is not to ask for money. Just talk about your deals, talk about what you do, about your story, about your purpose, because people kind of buy into people and their ideas, not necessarily the deals.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And I think with yourselves, obviously you're very credible. You're an architect and you speak so passionately about your purpose and, what you want to achieve. So I think that probably helps quite a lot in terms of making people feel comfortable to invest in you as well. So that must help. That's really good. So, so you're talking about this. You've got some projects on the go and some more in the near future. So what are you working on at the moment?
So we've just finished a buy-to-let refurb. So it's a property that we bought at an auction back in January, and that's the one I was telling you is going to be on Homes Under the Hammer. So that's quite exciting.
Very exciting.
And then there's another buy-to-let refurb that I started negotiating back in November. I must have had the offers rejected probably five to six times before I got the call from the agent saying, right, the vendor's ready to sell to you for 20% below the asking price. I'd structured the deal in a way that I knew made sense. So I just stuck to my guns, kept reoffering, following up, and we got the deal in the end. So that one's in the middle of a refurb. And then we're working on a 6-bedroom HMO for another investor. So that's not one of our properties, but as a construction company, we have a contract to refurbish a HMO, which gives us a kind of insight into a new strategy that we can't necessarily afford to kind of be on at the moment.
Okay, yeah. So like you're saying, so that insight into how a property has to be converted and refurbed and everything like that to meet all the regulations and everything. So that'd be really interesting. Is that something you're looking to do in the future, HMOs?
Possibly not in our investment area. The first thing you have to look at is what works in your area. And in our particular area, buy-to-let with good cash flow works really well because the property prices are so low and the rents are relatively high. So it just makes sense. But we'd never try to force a strategy into an area that doesn't necessarily suit.
Yeah. And with your buy-to-lets then, are you also adding value to pull out finance, to pull out the money, or
Always.
are you just... Yeah, always.
Always. We would never buy a property that we can't force appreciation in some way. So
absolutely.
In the future, we'd love to find pieces of land that we could put planning permission on, develop ourselves, and split different maybe split leases, and create multiple titles. So we're looking at more creative strategies as well, but we're starting with a foundation of simple buy-to-lets.
No, I think that's really good. And always forcing that appreciation, I think, makes so much sense. And it's one of the real strengths of property. You can do that with an asset. So that's really, really cool. So you said earlier about, when you met your now husband, you started talking about property straight away. But was there anything in particular that sparked your interest in property investment, or was it just a kind of shared vision?
Yeah, so for me, where it came from is this feeling of being able to transform a property. So either starting from scratch, from literally a blank sheet of paper with a vision and a brief, and creating a house that someone is proud to call home. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So being able to do that, not just for other people, but for ourselves, was the starting point, really. And because Richard's worked in construction over the years, he's helped his sisters refurbish their houses. He's got the same sort of bug of refurbishing and seeing that kind of transformation.
Yeah. So the house you sold to kick all this off, did you refurbish and add value to that property as well? Or?
We did. The house was only 10 years old, so it was sold to us as a house that you could move into. You didn't need to do anything to it, but we actually did a back to brick refurb on it.
Okay.
So it was counterintuitive. That was what we wanted to do. We wanted to put our stamp on it, and we gutted the place and we changed it. So there's plenty of pictures on our website and on our Instagram. But if we were doing that as an investment, we probably wouldn't have gone so far. But it paid off in the end, because the lady who lives there now calls it her forever home. She sends us photos and Christmas cards, and she loves it. So it worked.
And that's it sometimes, isn't it? It's about what people get from it as well as the numbers. Because I mean, I
love. It has to be a space that people love.
Yeah, I love the whole thing of taking something that looks really horrible, it's a bit smelly, a bit kind of dirty and stuff like that, and like bringing it around to something that's really, really nice for people to live in, and people kind of comment on how much they enjoy living there and things like that. I think it's a big part of why a lot of people invest in property, is that kind of sense of achievement and seeing where you've been as well. Because I think a lot of jobs and investments and stuff, you can't really see where you've been, if you know what I mean. But with property, you can see what it looked like before and what it looks like now and how much you've achieved. I love that personally. It's a great thing. Yeah. Okay, so you've already said about this. So when you first started in property, then you've said about setting up and getting the money together. But did you have any training or mentorship or anything like that?
Absolutely. So in September, a few months before we sold the house, we'd already signed up to do some property courses, because we think it's important to have the education behind us. We wouldn't be so naive to think that just because we know construction and we have that background that we know about investments, because we didn't. So the training that we did opened our minds to new strategies, creative ways of raising finance, different ways of structuring deals, how to communicate with people. And we have a really long way to go, but the courses have given us a really solid foundation and a network of other like-minded people, because it can feel really lonely doing property. It's quite isolating, and your existing circle of family and friends don't necessarily understand what you're doing. So your reality is completely different to other people's. So it's that kind of keeping the mindset and keeping your spirits up. I think the community is really important, as well as the education and the support.
Absolutely, because I think sometimes with family and friends, because they just don't know, they can be sometimes less enthusiastic as you'd like them to be, and then it's keeping that kind of enthusiasm and positivity going forward. That's a bit of a challenge sometimes.
It does eventually sweep people up, actually. Eventually, you could, that's a good thing, what you were just saying, that you can prove yourself. You've got proof with property that once you've refurbished a property, you've rented it out, you've refinanced it, you've proved that your model works. So after that, you should be able to raise finance more easily, get people supporting you more easily, and it gets people excited as well. Who doesn't love watching, these TV shows of transforming houses? Everybody does.
Absolutely. And it sounds like we'll be seeing you on one of those TV shows in the not too distant future, hopefully.
Yes, very exciting. Depending on the social distancing restrictions.
That'd be great, though. You'll have to let me know when it's due on and stuff like that.
Definitely. It'll be posted on our Instagram for sure.
Absolutely. So, so you did the training. Did you have any follow-up support, any mentorship or any kind of accountability work or?
Absolutely. We have ongoing support. So we've stretched our training out over a period. Well, we get a period of 2 years, but we've condensed our courses within 12 months. So after that, we could start doing refreshers. And we've got a mentorship coming up in the autumn. So we've got 3 days with a really experienced property investor. We'll go out there, maybe negotiate some lease options, some assisted sales, maybe buy a commercial to resi project. So we've got big ideas for where we want to go in the future. And we know that we've got the right people to support us during that journey. And then on a more regular basis, I have a business coach that I started working with recently. And she's completely changed my mindset, and she's helped me set really clear goals. She's given me tools and strategies that I'm more than happy to share because they just work so well. And to save time, be more efficient, keep your spirits up when things aren't going so well. And it gives me a lot of accountability, which you touched upon and is really, really important. I know that every Monday morning, I've got my call with my coach. So I've got my list of what have I achieved this week? What do I want to talk about? What do I need help with?
That's great. Yeah. I've not thought of that really, the kind of business coach idea, because it's a business, what we're all involved in really. It's just bricks and mortar rather than, numbers on a spreadsheet and, widgets.
Absolutely. It's important that your business coach has property experience. So ours is a very experienced investor as well. But I needed a business coach rather than a property coach because we have other businesses as well. In the future, I'd like to have more businesses. So having someone who's already been there and done that gives you a lot of comfort and security.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very cool. So next we have 3 top tips for investing around your business. So what have you got for us?
That's my favorite question. So my number 1 team is outsourcing. And it sounds counterintuitive at the beginning of the business to start giving out tasks to other people. It's frightening, especially if you're a bit of a control freak like myself. So the first thing I did when I started in property is starting to look for a VA. The process was a lot more straightforward than you'd think. And 4 months later, she's an absolutely seamlessly integrated member of the team. And she helps me every single day with all sorts of admin tasks. She takes a lot of the really time-consuming aspects of property investment off my shoulders. So yeah, that's definitely my number 1 tip. But outsourcing in a more general sense as well. So as a business owner, you have to think, what's my time worth and where is it better spent? So for example, obviously not during lockdown, but in general, having a cleaner, having a food delivery service, having childcare, having systems and processes in place is so important. So your mind and your time aren't consumed with things that someone else could do better.
Absolutely. And like you were saying, then you're freed up to do the jobs that you're best placed to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do what you do best and outsource the rest.
Sounds good.
So my number 2 tip is planning. This one's obvious, but having a real structure and routine, having a sleep routine. So I know that my optimum sleep every night is 7 hours. So I sleep from midnight to 7. I have a toddler who dictates a lot of my routine anyway. Toddlers thrive off routine, but so do adults.
Absolutely.
So I think having that structure in place and using something like a passion planner to block out your time. So sit down on a Sunday night, plan your week, put all your appointments in, check where you've got time for self-care or a bit of a break, and then just fill it up and see how your week's mapping out in advance. And then every single night, I review my passion planner and say, right, what have I got for tomorrow? So when I wake up in the morning, I know what I'm supposed to be doing rather than feeling overwhelmed. Because my to-do list I can't always keep on top of it. It grows shorter than it grows quicker than it shrinks. So
I totally agree.
Planning, a really important aspect.
I think planning's absolutely key to keeping your sanity as well as just keeping on top of stuff. It's really, really key. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. The magical thing about time blocking is that during that time, you know that you're not supposed to do anything else apart from what you're doing. So I leave and plan reading a magazine, I'll plan listening to a podcast, I'll plan cooking, and then everything else kind of fits around it. So you get rid of that guilt or sort of voice in the back of your head saying you should be doing something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Great tip.
Yeah, and my number 3 tip would be goal setting. So this is a really big one. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know when you've got there? And also, how do you know what decisions you need to make every single day to get you closer to your goal? So I'm a very visual person. I have a vision board that has expanded to take up a whole wall in my office. We stick on that things that we want to do in the future, traveling, what goals we want to achieve financially, emotionally. Everything that we want to achieve in the future goes on the vision board. So if you're having a hard day, you take a look at your vision board and you know why you're doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. And just keep that goal front and center so you know exactly where you're heading. Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah, and it's important to review the goals as well.
Of course.
So you check them regularly. At the beginning of the year, it makes sense to sit down and set your goals. Then something like a global pandemic happens, and maybe you have to go back and review your goals. Like, are they still realistic?
Yeah,
and this has been a great opportunity to do that reflection that we don't always have time to do.
Totally agree. One of our regular goals. One of our goals is to travel and get away and see more places. So we had a really regular kind of recurring goal, but obviously now it's not happening for a good while. Yeah, so that one has to be
we'll
reviewed for a little bit.
We'll really enjoy it when we do travel.
Absolutely,
again.
Yeah, I can't wait. So brilliant, thank you for those. They're great. So what? Have you got a business book or a property book that you found really inspirational or you go back to?
So one of my favourite books is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Okay, I've not read that.
Have you read that one?
No.
So it talks about the 4 laws of behaviour change, which are based on building good habits. And it talks about how the environment is the visible hand that shapes human behavior, basically. So the 4 main principles of habits is making it obvious, making it attractive, making it easy, and making it satisfying. And this doesn't necessarily make sense, but if you read the book, I listen to audiobooks personally because I can get through them a lot quicker.
Same, yeah.
James Clear explains it all so well. And it's about making incremental changes. So it's not always realistic to say, from now on, I'm going to work out 5 days a week, starting from scratch, or from now on I'm going to change my diet or change all my habits. And it's about making these tiny changes every single day that have a huge sort of compound impact.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I'm gonna try that one. So it sounds a little bit like some of those things like The Slight Edge and other books like that. Yeah, where you kind of incremental changes and everything like that. But no, I like the sound of that. That sounds really good.
Yeah. And as an added bonus, James Clear has a really good newsletter. It's short, it's got some really good quotes in there. So whether you need inspiration or social media sort of bits to post, his newsletter is really, really good.
What's his name again, sorry?
James Clear.
Okay, brilliant. That sounds good. Cool, okay. So do you use any tools or anything like that to keep on top of your kind of your life?
Definitely. So the most obvious one that you talked about in a previous episode is the iPhone calendar. I couldn't live without the calendar on my phone. So even though I've got a written calendar, I also have a digital one. So for me, it's a hybrid of the two. In terms of apps and software, we use Trello a lot. So we have all our lists. I love a list. So we have multiple boards for different things, shared with different people. We track different projects and what everybody's supposed to be doing in the team. Then we use Canva for a lot of our branding and marketing and social media posts, birthday cards. It's just brilliant. I love Canva.
I love Canva.
I have a pro subscription, which is definitely worthwhile.
Is it? Okay, I've got the free. Yeah, I just use a freebie, and that seems pretty good to me.
Does a lot.
Yeah, but the pro is good, is it?
It's worth a try. So it's worth a free trial and see if you get any value out of it. The other thing that we use a lot now that my VA and I have been developing for the business is Airtable. I don't know
I've
if
not
you've
heard
heard
of
of
that.
it.
No.
So it's basically replaced all of our Excel spreadsheets. So it's online, cloud-based, and you can customize all your spreadsheets completely. So we have one for our CRM, so that's where we keep all our contacts. We've got one for all our deals. We keep notes and photographs and specifics about different projects. We track all our budgets, personal, business, and refurb budgets. So Airtable is definitely worth trying out.
Yeah,
There's some really
good.
good YouTube videos on it as well.
Okay. Yeah. No. I'm
And it's
into looking at that.
free, completely free.
I know it's free. Did you say? Sorry, you went glitchy there for a second.
Yeah, it's completely free, which is great.
I like that. Yeah. Always. Cool. Okay. So also then, so the other thing is about people, isn't it? So you've got lots of tools and things like that. So you said already about your VA, so that's obviously really important for you to help you run your business and life and everything like that. But do you rely on other people that you kind of keep on going back to for support and advice and things like that?
100%. So the first and most obvious one is my husband. So he's my business partner. He is absolutely great because we have almost no overlap in skills. We have completely different interests, different roles within the business. So his role is generally to be on site, project manage, source materials, track the timescales, the budgets, and managing all our subcontractors. And so we try not to tread on each other's toes as a team because we find that's the most effective way to work. And equally, I'm the one finding the deals, building the relationships, branding, marketing, networking, and doing all the admin and the day-to-day running of the business, which to me doesn't feel like work because I enjoy it so much and it comes quite naturally. So yeah, I'd say definitely Richard is the person I rely on the most.
Yeah.
And apart from that, obviously, I have my business coach, who's great. I've got family for childcare. I wouldn't have been able to quit my job if we didn't have Richard's parents looking after the baby for us. Not right now, and I'm really feeling the pain of working from home with childcare.
Was that one of the other factors? Was that one of the other factors about where your investment area is?
Yes, yeah. It kind of is. It just worked. We considered it and it made sense. Stoke-on-Trent is really good in a sense. Stoke is a bit oversaturated with investors, which a lot of people would see as a negative. But for us, I'm setting up a sourcing business because the way I see it, if I have deals coming through that we can't necessarily proceed with straight away, I could sell them on to other people in my network. We have the construction business and we do specialize in refurbs and extensions for other investors as well. So we're sort of leveraging other people's time and needs as well to grow our business. So it just made sense. Stoke-on-Trent really made sense.
That's great. Yeah. Makes sense.
And then I'd say friends are a really good support network, especially non-property friends, because they bring you back to, where you've come from and just normal things. So yeah, I love connecting with my friends and having that sort of support.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And then of course there's the network and the online community that you get from being in property, and especially the community on Instagram, I find is so supportive and positive. It's a really inspiring place to be.
I like Instagram. Compared to the other social networks, I like Instagram. It does feel a lot more positive, doesn't it? I think anyway.
And personal.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, I like it a lot actually. I didn't get it at first, I have to admit, just sharing pictures. But I really like it now.
Yeah.
My wife turned me round in terms of liking Instagram. So yeah, no, definitely like it.
Great.
Then we've got a couple more questions to finish up. So the first one is, if you lost everything, including contacts, and had to start again, what would you do first?
Wow. So if we somehow lost our income, the most straightforward thing to do would be to go back into practice and work as an architect. So even though I can't visualize myself going back into a job, it would be the most sensible approach in the short term. And then I just rebuild the business on the side. I have so many passion projects in my mind and so many ideas for businesses that I think once you've done it once, it's so much easier the next time round because you've got the experience, the knowledge. So I think we just start again.
Mm-hmm. And would you go back into property investment on the side, or would you start with something else first once you had your architect job back?
I'd absolutely go back into property. I think it's the safest investment that you can have. It just makes so much sense. That's why the expression "safe as houses" exists.
Yeah. And that's done for years. Cool. Okay. Then the last question is, if you could speak to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give them?
Oh, if only. I would say trust your gut and don't be afraid to ask for help. Those would be the two main things. Because I think we often second guess ourselves and think about what everybody else is doing, what everybody else would say or think about your actions. And my advice would be, don't overthink it. If it feels right for you and it's aligned with your own values and goals, just do it.
Great.
And the other thing would be just the idea that you define your own success. Because I think, especially when we're at school, we get these preconceived ideas of what it means to be successful, to get a degree, get a job, retire, this sort of linear path that really isn't right for everybody. So redefining success on your own terms and not comparing yourself to what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. That whole thing, I think property is so powerful because it kind of takes you out of that structure that society kind of puts in for people, get a job, work until you retire, it allows you to kind of rework that a little bit and kind of step to one side of that kind of route that everybody has to kind of follow. Well, you don't have to, but a lot of people feel that they have to follow, which is one of the reasons.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good to think outside the box, and you really see that with property investors because there's such a diverse bunch. Everybody's come from different backgrounds. Some people are creative, some people have finance backgrounds, and it works. So it just is a really interesting space to be and socialize because if, I don't know, for example, if you're an accountant, all the other accountants around you tend to be similar people, whereas property investors, I've never met two investors that are the same.
I totally agree. Actually, I'm always surprised. It feels it's quite a nice bunch of people as well. The people I've spoken to, anyway, and you do get people from all sorts of different backgrounds. I've met some. Yeah, you just kind of think how did we all come to kind of decide actually this is a good thing to do? It's good. I like it. It's a nice. I think it's a nice environment of people to be involved with, really, because people are generally, well, you have to be generally pretty positive as well, which is always nice.
Not everybody, but you have the option to filter out the people and sort of pick your tribe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, maybe I'll just avoid those that aren't so positive.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. That's great. So, thanks again for joining me on the podcast. I'd love to keep in touch over the coming months to see how you get on, especially building your buy-to-let portfolio and moving on to those more ambitious projects that you sound like you're going to be getting on with, and checking in with your TV appearance, which would be really cool. How do other people? How would other people kind of get in touch with you? What's the easiest way for them to find you?
So the best way would be Instagram. Our handle is Powell_properties. And our website is powelldc.uk.
Brilliant.
And that stands for Powell Design and Construction, which is our business, isn't it?
Cool. Can you just repeat that? You glitched up a little bit there, just the website.
The website is powelldc.uk.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, thank you so much. That was really great. And like I say, it was fantastic for you to come and join me and have this little interview. And I'll speak to you again.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Stuart. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So there you have it, the interview with Alexandra from Powell Design and Construction. As Alexandra says in the interview, people come to property investment from so many different backgrounds, but I think with her background in architecture and her determination, I can really see her doing fantastic things over the coming years. And I hope to catch up with her in maybe a year's time so I can see what amazing things she's achieved. So for this week's tip, I'm actually going to hand back to Alexandra because after the interview, she gave me some really good advice about how to find a good virtual assistant. Where did you find your VA? Because I'm thinking about getting a VA.
Yeah, so Imogen at the Freedom Geek is by far the best place to get a VA. So she only sources VAs from the Philippines, and her filtering process is absolutely incredible. She does all these background checks on them. She puts them through a multiple choice test that's actually quite difficult. And then she checks their ID, their CVs. She even checks their internet connection speed and the type of laptop or equipment that they have. So it's really thorough. And then she shortlists 3 candidates. You interview them on Zoom. And then if you're happy with them, you can go ahead and start a trial. If you're not, she'll find you another 3. And when you pick your VA, she or he will come with a 6-month guarantee.
Oh, cool.
So if you're not happy for whatever reason, Imogen will replace them within 6 months for free.
That's brilliant.
But they need to be managed properly. I think there might be a misconception that you get a VA who's trained. My VA had never worked as a VA. She's an accountant. She's young. She didn't have any experience of property investment. And now, she doesn't know as much as I do about the UK property market, but she knows more than any average person. And, it's about what training you put into them.
Yeah.
And what thought you've put into what you want to achieve, short-term and long-term.
And the link for the Freedom Geek will be available in the show notes. So that's it from me this week. I hope you enjoyed the interview and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please leave me a 5-star review to help other people find it and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.